complete and utter insanity. That's how I describe Miami being behind Notre Dame. They are going to get completely screwed out of a playoff spot unless the committee feels enough pressure and changes course. But neither team is playing a game this weekend. So I'm unclear how Miami winds up in the playoff. If they are put in along with Notre Dame, that's an acceptable outcome. They either need to be in the same spot or Miami's in while Notre Dame is out. It just keeps getting more ridiculous with the committee. And again, I'll reiterate, I've been a defender of the committee because I think they have almost exclusively gotten it right. This is one where they are trending to get it very, very wrong. And all the belly aching, which I'm ridiculously tired of from the Texas side of things with regards to the playoff, and they're sitting there at 9-3, it doesn't look like they're making the college football playoff, nor should they. They should look back and go, yep, we shouldn't have lost to Florida. That's what kept us out. Just like Ole Miss last year. Yep, shouldn't have lost to Kentucky. That's what it needs to come down to. So for the committee to be in this position and then to put out some just completely asinine quotes about what they're doing. I'm not a tinfoil hat conspiracy guy, but I got to tell you, my kitchen is very well stocked, and obviously I've got tinfoil in there. I'm going to set some aside. I'm going to just stash it in the corner, and you might see me put a hat on at one point this year. So the folks out there that believe that, everything's just run by TV networks and it's a conspiracy to just get the teams that are going to get the most viewership. How do you argue against that with Notre Dame against Miami? How? Is it strength of schedule? No. Strength of record? No. Actual record? No. Head-to-head? No. There is no. They're just trying to say stuff that sounds good to justify, no, we're not putting Miami directly against Notre Dame. Notre Dame isn't in a conference. The league that they play the most often is the ACC. Well, we feel like Notre Dame's passing the eye test. Can you give me one example, member of the committee, of how in the last several weeks Miami hasn't passed the eye test? Because they went to Pitt, which everybody gave Notre Dame credit for going to and winning in dominant fashion. They went to a top 25 Pitt and beat them by a larger margin than the Irish did. Does that matter? No. No, of course not. Now, on a different note, here's the rankings, by the way, are Ohio State, Indiana, Georgia, Texas Tech, Oregon, Ole Miss, Texas A&M fell down to 7, Oklahoma 8, Alabama 9, and Notre Dame 10. Notre Dame went down. Why, you ask? Here's what the committee chair, Hunter Yurachek, said. Nicole Auerbach tweeted this out. Specifically, CFP chair Hunter Yurachek said Alabama's early 17-point lead over 5-7 Auburn, which it then blew, and then the, quote, gutsy call there late in the game to go for it on 4th and 2, end quote, and the late forced turnover were what impressed the committee. All right. I was watching the Iron Bowl. I did a reaction show. You know why? Because it's a great rivalry, and it was awesome. But if we step back and actually look at that game through a college football playoff lens, what he's saying there is totally insane. It's completely and totally insane. He is justifying moving Alabama up a slot for going on the road and beating a non-bowl team who had a head coach that wasn't good enough to be the head coach, so he got relegated back to being the defensive coordinator. Alabama, he actually mentions a 17-point lead. Who cares? Whenever you hear myself or many others talk about the utter ridiculousness of the leadership in college football and the people that make legitimate decisions that impact you, the fans, here's Exhibit A. What about that makes any sense? Bama went on the road and beat a non-bowl team, so we moved them up over Notre Dame, who's now one spot closer to Miami, but it's got a nice little buffer there. Here's what the committee is setting itself up for. I don't know if they're going to do this or not. But in the committee's own rankings right now, Notre Dame's 10, BYU's 11, Miami is 12. Texas Tech is favored by almost 2 touchdowns against BYU. That doesn't mean the Cougars can't win. They have to play a lot better than they did last time, but it's a neutral site, not a road game at least. So if BYU loses that game, very possible. We know the committee wants to keep BYU out of the playoff. They don't want to see him in there. So will BYU just stay put? Will they just sit there at 11-2 and serve as the buffer school so that there isn't the direct visual of Miami being right behind Notre Dame with the same record, with a bunch of the same opponents, and a head-to-head victory? I just continue to be befuddled at the fact that this sport, which I love this sport. I love the debates at some level. This one is driving me a little bit insane, if you haven't noticed. But I love the uniqueness of this sport. I love all of the processes that make it different than everything else, especially professional sports. I love that the Iron Bowl, which was a game between a potential playoff team and a team that isn't going to a bowl game with an interim head coach, was still a close game. Why? Because it's college football. And yet it is run at the highest levels by folks that have no idea what they are talking about. And they might not even be in control of their own words and actions all the time. They might be taking directive from someone else. I'm going to have a hard time talking some of you off that ledge. And guess what? I'm not even going to try to stop you from going down that rabbit hole because I don't think it's that. I don't think it's infeasible at all. I really don't. So it's complete madness and makes me really, really frustrated that Texas is doing all this. Well, what are we going to do? We got to reassess our non-conference schedule. Like, oh my gosh. Can you be more like Brett Bielema last year and less like Lane Kiffin last year and Steve Sarkisian this year? Like, it's so exhausting to listen to these guys just cry and moan about, well, it's just not fair. And what are we supposed to do with this? Beat Florida. And if Texas had put in a cupcake in place of Ohio State, guess what? I'd be ripping them for it, and so would others. And I don't think there's a guarantee that if Texas were 10-2, they'd be in the field. You know why? Because they wouldn't have a very high strength of schedule, and they'd still have a loss to Florida. It's just completely irritating. But Miami, that situation will have, I think, a much stronger case to have actual ramifications on how schools schedule their non-conference. Because they actually won the game. Ohio State lost, and it's like, well, we lost the game. Well, yeah. Okay. Miami won the game. Texas is out there, Steve Sarkisian, there was some back and forth. Not directly, but Mario Cristobal was asked about all this stuff and said, well, I mean, we've got a common opponent. Miami dominated Florida and Texas lost to them. So what was the score of that Miami-Florida game? It was, 26-7. Yeah, was not particularly close. So Miami's going to get screwed, but we live in a world where Jared Curtis, 5-star, number 1 quarterback, has flipped from Georgia to Vanderbilt. What isn't possible in this sport? You tell me. You tell me.